We're ready? Good morning. I would like to call to order a meeting of the Board of Youngstown University of Medicine, Bellevue Division. It's March 15th at 10:30 a.m. 2013. Currently present are, from the Bellevue branch, myself, Antonio Anderson, Board Chair and CEO. Our CIO, Lucas Piper. Our COO, Brandon McDaniels. Our CISO, Eric West. Danielle Childs, our Director of Nursing. Ben Lawson, our Head Surgeon. Mike Owens, our Chief of Medicine from Youngstown. And last but not least, Adam Gross, our Director of Continuity. Representing the school board, Pi Hilvitz, Kasama, Brian, and Brian. Also present are members of the IT team from our Tacoma Messina branches, and I'll let the project manager introduce his team. The agenda for today's meeting is as follows. Review of the plan enacted by the Tacoma Messina IT team regarding the network integration of the two new buildings, listing of specific design choices, decisions, policy enactments, and protocols put in place as they relate to the new network. This meeting is strictly for information building. All decisions were made previously, and any future changes must be discussed at another time. At this time, I would like to hand the floor over to Lucas Piper, our project manager. Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. First off, I'd like to introduce our IT team from the Tacoma Messina build. Nancy Stodgel, Network Architect. Curtis Bagnall, Senior Admin. Scott Foster, Security Specialist. Rob Hill, Network Engineer. And Scott Scholke, Database Admin. As you all know, last fall, Youngstown University of Medicine decided to expand its Bellevue practices, building a new 24-hour urgent care clinic in the facility in the town of Tacoma, as well as a satellite 8 to 5 clinic in the suburb of Messina. My team was tasked with designing, developing, integrating a multi-network, domain-structured environment within the existing Bellevue structure. I'm excited to tell you that as of today, that project is complete. Over the next few minutes, my team will describe to you the steps taken, the decisions made, and the hardware and software set up to complete this project. I encourage questions from the board members to be asked during the presentation. However, we will hold an open Q&A for all school board members at the end. At this time, I would like to pass the floor to Nancy, our network architect, who will describe to you an overview of our network layout, the domain structure, and the server roles.
Thank you, Mr. Piper. My name is Nancy Stodgel. I will be presenting a basic overview of our network domain structure and how it's set up. This is our basic network map.
Nancy, I forgot one thing. We prepared a handout that's going to cover the outline of the presentation. You want to take one and pass it down? I apologize.
The cloud here is representing the worldwide internet. These lines are the physical lines we'll be using that will be provided and maintained by our internet service provider. The Tacoma network has 3 lines here. One line is for the public wireless we'll be providing in the Tacoma site, while the other 2 will be connected to the 2 networks we have on that site. The demarc points are located here. They'll be connected to our ISO servers, which will be working as our firewall.
Excuse me, Nancy. What's a demarc point?
The demarc point is the point in the network where our internet service provider's responsibility begins and where it ends, and where our responsibility for support begins. We have 2 TACO networks. One is the medical network, and that will be servicing doctors, nurses, so on and so forth. The other is the office network, which will be servicing the financial office, human resources, and so on. We will also have a private wireless access point for the medical network for the doctors to use with their tablets. And we will also have a line running between these 2 routers to provide a more efficient path between the two networks. This also gives us some fault tolerance. In case one of these ISO servers go down, this network can then go through the other network to get to the internet if needed. The Messina network is smaller due to the smaller staff. It only has the one network, but it does have the private wireless access point for the doctors to use.
Excuse me, Nancy.
Yes, sir.
How much bandwidth will each line support for internet access?
The bandwidth we're using, each Google Fiber line runs at 1 gigabit per second for upload and download. That will provide over 10/100 gigabyte fiber links to allow for additional bandwidth for future use if needed.
Thank you.
These are the 3 domains that have been set up. The Bellevue site has already. Sorry about that.
Good thing you were buttoning here earlier.
This is the Bellevue site that has already been established by the Bellevue IT team. The 2 domains that we set up is the Taco and the Moss domains. The Taco domain is a child of the Bell domain, which will allow us to make universal groups so the doctors have easier access between the 2 domains.
Universal groups? What is a universal group?
That is question better answered by Curtis, who's in charge of the policy.
Universal group basically makes it easier for us to organize objects within each domain in the whole forest, whereas a global group will allow us to organize objects in that certain domain. So,
And like I mentioned, since that is the forest group, this is the entire forest for us, so that allows us to organize those objects and those domains in forest. The Messina domain is a child of Taco, and rather than making a child of Bellevue, and this is so that it sets up an automatic trust between the 2 domains, that saves us from having to create a manual trust. So it gives us easier access for the doctors to go back and forth between the 2 domains. This is the Taco site. Like I mentioned before, there's 2 networks, medical and office. The servers that are running on each network, for the medical side, we have 2 domain controller and DNS servers, 2 DHCP servers, a Win server, a file backup, a print, and an EMR server, which is the electronic medical record server. We also have the router RF server, and then the ISO server, which is serving as our firewall for that network. Again, like I mentioned before, there is the private wireless access point for the doctors to use. On the office network, we have 2 domain controller DNS servers, 2 DHCP servers, a Win server, a file and backup, print server, another EMR server, the router RF server, and then the ISO server. The Messina network, like I said before, is just one network due to a smaller staff, so less network traffic. It is running 2 domain controller DNS servers, 2 DHCP Win servers, 2 file and backup, 2 print, and another EMR server. There is no router RF server on this network. Instead, we simply have the ISO server to serve as our firewall, and then the private wireless access point. The reasons for these numbers and what each server will be doing will be discussed in more detail later in the presentation. That's a general overview of the networks, and I will give the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Nancy. Were there any other questions from our board members regarding basis of the setup? No? Then at that time, I would like to pass the floor on to Curtis. Curtis was in charge of the group to set up most of our inter-domain structures, including the OUs, users groups, as well as enacting most of our group policies.
as Lucas stated, my name is Curtis Bagnall. I'm the senior admin. Thank you for noticing my nonsense. Talk to you a little bit about the naming scheme we came up with. The Bellevue IT staff has already set up the initial naming scheme. They shortened Bellevue to Bell, and Youngstown University of Medicine has been shortened to Young. We went ahead and went with the same name structure, shortening Tacoma to Taco, Messina to Moss. Putting all that together gives us our FQDN, or fully qualified domain name. So for Tacoma, it's taco.bell.young, and Messina is moss.taco.bell.young. The FQDN is the name the net resolution will use, and that will be discussed later by Rob. I'll go into a little bit of how we named our computers. For our urgent care clinic in Tacoma, we shortened it down to UC, Messina, general practice, GP. medical side, med, and office side off. The department will be abbreviated as appropriate. So I'll give you a few examples. Client computer name for our urgent care side, we shortened it to UC, med, nurse card, O2. We went ahead and put the 0 in front of the single digits in case we expand and get more than 10 computers. We don't have a mix-up in our numbers. Also, you see an example for a general practice server 03. I'll go in a little bit on our OU structure. OU stands for an anagram for organizational unit, which will act as sort of a container that we can put objects, groups, other OUs in and whatnot. Makes it easier to manage and modify. Like, let's say if I wanted to modify an attribute for all nurse aides, I can just go to the nurse aide OU, modify the attribute at that level, and it would affect all users in that group. It also makes it easier to find certain people in departments. If I was trying to see who all works in the financial department, I can just open up the financial and see every user listed in there. Tell you a little bit how we split up our OU structure. Back. So much fun. That's awesome. We split up the domains for our medical side and office side. We further then separate the staff computers, staff in each department, computers for each department who they're going towards. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit how we added all of this. I actually created a script file, which you can see that's for one domain. It's about 1/10 of the script. I was able to create that in Excel and export it and then incorporate it into a batch file. That allowed us to add OUs, users, the attributes, computers, and groups, and let us add the users to the group.
Excuse me, but what if somebody moves or if they get married? Do you have to go in and delete them and then re-add them back in again?
There's a number of ways we can do that. We could modify them through the GUI if we feel the need. We could also use dsmodify, which would be used through the command prompt. There's also cvide or ldifde or PowerShell. Use any of those to change an attribute.
Excuse me. You know we have an intern program where we're bringing in new people, quarterly. Are you gonna have to create a new script every time we need to add new users or groups?
No, I have set up templates for each department, which will have certain attributes that that department requires. All we have to do is add the user, and we could modify a few attributes to suit that user and add them from there.
Thank you. Yep.
So if there are any more questions, I'll get into our group policy groups. We separate our groups into 5 basically groups for group policy. One being medical staff, which has all the medical staff, finance, marketing, human resource, IT.
So sorry to interrupt. We have an emergency call from today.
I'm sorry guys, it looks like one of the nurse aides has locked her computer in the Tacoma branch, so they're not able to process any patients. I'm going to need to adjourn the meeting for just a second. Scott, can you take care of that?
Sure, no problem. Scott, can you move that, please?
What's he doing over there?
Well, essentially, we've given a select few IT staff the ability to get into our network from outside locations via remote desktop connection. So right now, Scott is using a program on his tablet to access his workstation back in Tacoma. This gives him the ability to act like he was actually sitting at his desk with all the access to programs and features that he would have while there.
I see.
So what keeps anyone else from doing that?
Well, we're going to cover that a little later, but essentially, Scott's workstation back in Tacoma has to be given the rights to do that. His account has to be given the ability, and then he has to know all the relevant login info. So.
Hey Lucas, I'm done. Nicole, you can tell them that their account's been unlocked and the password's been reset.
Thank you. Curtis? Sorry, guys.
Well, that was entertaining. Let me reiterate on the topic where I was talking about group policy and the groups we added to group policy. We have the medical staff, the finance, marketing, human resource, IT, administration, all separate groups.
Hey, Curtis,
Yes.
why do you have separate group policies instead of applying all these settings to everyone?
There's certain policies that will need to affect other people than not, or one group but not others. For example, our office groups will have the ability to change their background, whereas our medical staff, since patients will be able to see their computers, we have set a default background, and they will not be able to change that. We want to have a professional demeanor and whatnot.
I see.
A couple more policies that we added. We'll have a warning display up on all logins that, as a top security measure, and it'll have a message displaying such as this computer is being monitored. We're going to remove the previously logged in account from visibility, so you won't be able to see who previously logged into that. And we're limiting the login attempts to 5 before you're locked out, as we just saw at the Tacoma office. We will also we will audit failed logins that will be sent to the administrator for illicit login count or attempts.
So you're gonna be able to monitor.
Yeah, we'll be able to monitor all that. All non-IT machines will have the control panel and date and time settings unaccessible to them. Guest accounts will be disabled, and all users will be required to have a complex password.
Complex password like hyperbilirubinemia.
Hyperbilirubinemia.
What is hyperbilirubinemia?
It's a kind of jaundice.
It's a complex word. Complex word, but not necessarily complex password. Complex password must meet 3 of the 4 of the following conditions. You need to have 1 uppercase character, 1 lowercase character, 1 number, and 1 special character, percent sign or asterisk, like that. All passwords will have a minimum requirement of 8 characters and a maximum of 32. They'll all have a 30-day lifespan, and we've actually incorporated a fine-grained password policy for our IT, since we're going to have a lot more, we can do a lot more damage if somebody hacks our account. So their minimum password is going to be 10 characters long. You'll be prompted 3 days before to change your password before, and you'll have to keep a minimum password lifespan of 15 days.
Why wait 15 days?
We're going to have it set to basically save your last 6 passwords, so you won't be able to use them again. And incorporating the 15-day minimum allows it so people can't keep constantly changing their password and get back to their original password in the same day. So it kind of makes it so they have to keep the new password. And if there's no more questions, let's brief overview of some of the group policies that we incorporated and how we had users. I'll now give the floor back to Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
So there isn't any more questions on group policy at this time? Okay. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor to Scott Foster, our security specialist. He's going to talk about some of the ways that we're protecting both our network and our data.
Thank you, Lucas. Good morning, everyone. As Lucas mentioned, I will be discussing network and data security. I want to first start with the ways that we will exclude unwanted external traffic. This starts with our firewalls. Our firewalls will be managed by 2 ISA servers on both networks. For the Tacoma network, there will be 2 of them. For the Messina network, there will be 1 ISA server. These will be located as the first point of entrance behind our DMARC for the ISP. These servers will control which ports we open and will allow us to block network traffic from certain IP ranges and websites. ISA can also handle our network address translation rather than assigning it to our routers, which could cause problems at the Tacoma site between the medical and office networks. For all traffic routed through the ISA servers, it will then be sent to our routers where it will be disseminated to the appropriate resource. For standard ports such as web traffic, assuming it has been allowed by the ISA firewall, it will then be sent directly through to our routers. For web services such as remote desktop connection, common port numbers will be changed, new port numbers assigned, and external ports will be forwarded based on their destination. This will be a deterrent for anyone attempting to connect to the network from the outside. Our setup will allow outbound traffic, but the ISA server will allow us to log outbound traffic and determine if we need to block anything specific. Our rules for routing and remote access will be governed by the policies set forth in the network policy server. As you've seen, IT personnel have the ability to connect to the network from external locations. Only those belonging to the IT senior user group will be allowed to establish a connection using RDC to fix potential problems that occur when they are not on site. This is because RDC has the same amount of access that their normal workstations do. Other IT staff will use VPN connections, which we can limit the programs and features they can access from the outside. For this connection, we will use IPsec and L2TP to encrypt the data over the internet. IPsec will also be required for the VPN connections between the Bellevue, Tacoma, and Messina sites. Right now, we've opened 10 ports per network for this purpose. Since IP addresses from other locations are not statically assigned in many cases, we edited the registry to allow specific MAC addresses as an available network policy. Admins will authenticate by means of MS-Chat V2. VPN connections between Tacoma and Messina domains will be allowed as well and will be filtered by IP and MAC address. With regards to the EMR servers, which we will filter packets so only certain IPs can gain access to these machines. They will not be allowed to be accessed by means of a VPN. As mentioned earlier by Nancy, both Tacoma and Messina domains have a private WAP that will allow for tablets and laptops to connect wirelessly within the network. We will prevent unauthorized access to these wireless access points by way of removing the SSID broadcast, hiding the public broadcast for the network's availability. Additionally, each device authorized to connect to these networks will be filtered by way of their MAC address. These points will use WPA2 encryption and the passwords will be changed every 90 days. From here, the employee's normal username and password will be required to complete the connection. Currently for our network, each of our servers will be configured in a RAID 1 array. In addition to this, the file servers will have an additional 2 independent disks. One will be used exclusively for backups. The second will be an unallocated drive that can be used in the event of one of the other drives, 3 drives in the system going down. Due to the current size of our network, the speed of the disk drives is not an issue. However, if we do expand, the option to convert to a RAID 10 will be available. Redundancy must continue to be paramount in this environment. Each of our locations will perform shadow copies. Shadow copies allow different versions of the files to be preserved for a set amount of time, essentially creating a snapshot of that file for the time that we specify. For the Messina Clinic, which operates between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, shadow copies will be performed at 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. each day. For the Tacoma Urgent Care Center, these backups will be performed at regular intervals 7 days a week. They will occur at 8 a.m., 4 p.m., and 11 p.m. In addition to these shadow copies, we will be backing up this data in regular intervals. The backup schedule for both locations will be identical. Once a week on Monday morning at 1 a.m., a full backup will be performed. This will be supplemented by incremental backups at the same time for all the other days of the week. These times are optimal to ensure minimal load on the file servers while the process is going on.
Hold on. If you have all your files in one location, what happens if a tornado happens?
A tornado.
That knocks the building down.
Yeah, well, in that case, what we'd be able to do is essentially, on Monday morning, when the IT staff comes in, we are exporting everything to an external drive and transporting it to the Bellevue site, so that in the event of a catastrophic event like that, the most that we're going to be able, or the most that we're going to lose is 1 week's worth of data, and that's at in the worst case scenario. But it won't be a total loss. That's all I have, Lucas.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any other questions regarding data network security?
Is Frank still working on Facebook?
Well, actually, on our network, you can. I talked it over with the HR, and we decided that since it's a new building, most of our staff is new, we are not going to start out by blocking any of the social network or kind of anti-productive websites. The HR and I, she decided that we're going to kind of handle things on a case-by-case basis and try to deal with the team member that has the problem. If it becomes widespread, obviously, then we can go and block websites from there. We still will block all known malicious websites, though. Anything else? Well, okay, then at this time, I'd like to pass the floor to Rob Hill, our engineer. He's going to talk about what him and his team did as far as some of the network implementations.
Thank you, Lucas. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm going to review our connectivity scheme specific to DNS, DHCP, WINS, and our Wi-Fi. Our task included setting up networks for our new clinic as well as an urgent care unit. Based on the relatively low number of employees that we're going to have, we went with a straight C-class IP range. This will allow enough addresses to accommodate our needs now as well as in the future if we do grow. As you can see, we've assigned IP ranges based on groups or departments. We're dynamically assigning IPs from 1 through 99.
I plan on adding equipment later, x-ray machines, golf swing analyzers, and maybe some DVD winders. Is that going to be enough?
That's an excellent question. Yes, we took that into consideration. We know our CEO. Currently, we don't have any more than 30 employees in each network. However, there are many pieces of equipment that do need access, such as that golf swing analyzer, which is why we've assigned 99 dynamically assigned IP ranges for that. We've also allocated static ranges for other resources like printers, file servers, and domain controllers, etc. This leaves us an additional 50 IPs per network that are excluded that can be utilized at any time in the future. For our DHCP scheme, we have duplicity to ensure fault tolerance by having a DHCP server in each network and creating a scope in each network for the other network in case of failure, similar to the recommended 80-20 split. This way we have some IP ranges for one network available for assignments in another network in case of failure. If one DHCP server goes down, we'll still be able to assign those additional addresses to the network via the DHCP relays until we can replace or resume function in that equipment. We've similarly set up our WINS and DNS servers. All DNS zones are Active Directory integrated to ensure that we never lose productivity, and it also gives us another level of security. The WINS server allows for NetBIOS name resolution, and our DNS will facilitate FQDN, or Qualified Domain Name Resolution. We've also provided free wireless service to our patients and their families in the waiting room on our Tacoma network, providing them the connection for doctors as well for uses on their tablets.
Oh, excuse me, Rob. Will allowing our customers to use our Wi-Fi compromise security?
Excellent question. We took that into consideration, which is why the wireless service available on our medical network in Tacoma for our customers will be provided by a third party. This way, we won't need to devote resources for maintenance or upkeep on that network. Scott Foster has addressed already how we would ensure security for the wireless network for the doctors and our staff with their tablets. This has been a brief overview of our IP scheme. I'd like to thank you, and I will now turn the floor back over to Mr. Solo.
My wife. Miss Marcel, you said that. Any other questions about our network side? I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor to Scott Schulke, our database admin. He was in charge of setting up our file servers.
Thank you, Lucas. Good morning, everyone. We've decided that each location can have its own file server. We're using the File Server Resource Manager to facilitate our data storage needs and policies. And we set up hard quotas for folders. We currently have 1 terabyte of hard drive space reserved for a public folder used throughout the entire organization. Everyone will be able to access this folder by clicking on the Z drives located on their respective machines. Each workplace component has a public folder listed as X or Y drive. These drives have 500 gigabytes of disk space each. All the network drives are located at the respective file server at the workspace, with the main Z drive located at Bellevue. Actually, everyone has a home folder, personal use, to 100 megabytes. But reason why we kept it at 100 megabytes is to allow the backup operations to be completed quickly at night.
Hey Scott, what happens when somebody reaches that folder limit?
That person will get an email telling them that they are nearing the data limit. Either we can increase their quota. We also look at reporting standards daily on how much data space is being used, and we can pre-adjust the quotas to be conservative demands.
Scott, what happens if I have a project that I have to complete and I need more space than is currently allocated?
If the person needs more space for a project, we can allocate unused disk space from the home folder to meet the demands.
Is there any way to control what type of files they're saving? I mean, I don't want, our staff saving their music videos and vacation videos.
Yes, we can look at that type of files saved by setting up filters and policies. We can decide on what files can be saved at a later time. Finally, we want to keep the data safe, but allow people the ability to change it and stuff we store online. We do this by establishing permissions for the public folders. The owner, that's the creator of the file, and the IT administrators can delete the files, and only the owner can modify the files. Restricted people's access at the NTFS level. This allows us to set up permissions for individuals and groups. That's the end of the file server policies, and I'd like to thank you and give back to Mr. Papa.
Thanks, Coach. Any other questions on file servers and public folders? No? Well, that concludes what we've got laid out for our presentation. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and open a Q&A with the school board members. If you have any questions for my team